The air carried that heavy warmth that only late summer nights can hold, the kind that clings to your skin and makes the world feel strangely suspended. After the party, the sound of laughter still lingered faintly behind me as I walked, fading like embers cooling in the dark. My friends had drifted off in other directions, scattering toward their cars or houses, and I was left with nothing but the rhythmic sound of my heels on the pavement and the faint scent of cut grass rising from neatly trimmed lawns. The neighborhood seemed calm enough to trust. Houses stood in perfect rows, their porches lit by yellow bulbs that hummed with tired electricity. Somewhere, a sprinkler ticked faintly, casting droplets that glimmered under the streetlight. There was a serenity to it all, the kind of peace that tempts you into lowering your guard. Yet peace can be deceptive. It often waits for the smallest sound to unravel. That sound arrived as the slow, rumbling crawl of an engine. The noise rolled through the otherwise silent street, low and steady, as though the vehicle had no purpose but to mirror the speed of my steps. A glance over my shoulder confirmed the unease already gnawing at me, a dented red truck creeping forward with deliberate patience, its headlights buzzing weakly, casting shadows long enough to look unnatural. At first, I told myself it could mean nothing. Perhaps someone lived nearby. Perhaps someone was simply lost. Yet when the driver leaned forward, letting his arm drape over the window frame, I caught sight of him, heavy-set, his shirt smeared with stains that seemed to have aged with him, red plastic shorts hanging awkwardly over his legs. His face was obscured by a mask, the cheap rubber kind you might see in bargain bins near Halloween, white, stretched into a grotesque grin that refused to blink. Something in my chest tightened, not panic yet, but the sharpened edge of instinct. The sight of a mask in summer suburbia carries no reason, no harmless explanation, only the sense of something dislodged from the natural order. The truck crawled closer until its engine's breath felt too near. His voice reached me, muffled through the rubber but carried with oily clarity. "Where you headed, sweetheart?" My mouth went dry. Silence seemed safer than any answer. The air thickened as though it had weight, and each step forward became a small act of resistance against the pull of fear. The truck refused to pass. Tires hissed across gravel, inching forward whenever I did. The man leaned out farther, his voice sharper now, pressing into the night like a blade. "Don't ignore me." I turned the corner quickly, hoping the change of direction would dismiss him, but the vehicle swung after me with precision, headlights washing over my back. The warmth of the night no longer felt gentle, it felt oppressive, a heat that made breathing shallow. I crossed to the opposite sidewalk, praying for the absurd relief of coincidence. The truck crossed too. There comes a moment when caution collapses and instinct seizes control, when the body no longer asks permission from the mind. My pace shifted from quickened steps to a run, heels clattering across the pavement, echoing in a rhythm too frantic to be ignored. The roar of the engine answered. Houses blurred into silhouettes as I sprinted, the neat hedges now looming like indifferent walls. A porch light flared ahead, a small beacon. I vaulted up the steps, pounding on the door until my knuckles burned. "Please! Open up! Someone's following me!" For a moment, silence mocked me. Then shadows stirred inside, a curtain twitched, and light bled faintly through the narrow glass panel. Relief surged, until it died. The door never opened. The truck idled at the curb, headlights pressing me flat against the wooden frame. He hadn't moved closer, not yet. He only sat there, mask tilted, studying me with the stillness of something that didn't need to rush. The terror of that silence propelled me off the porch. I tore through the side yard, leaping over a fence that scraped deep into my leg, ignoring the sting as I pushed through the damp grass and back onto another street. His boots struck pavement behind me. He had left the truck. Breath sawed through my lungs, but the air carried no oxygen, only panic. Every step seemed to slow while his presence pressed closer, heavy, relentless. I cut street after street, searching desperately for lights, voices, any sign of human presence. None came. The only salvation left was the party house, the last place I had known safety. When I reached the corner, my chest tightened with hope. But as it came into view, that hope crumbled. The house stood dark, doors locked, windows blank. Everyone had gone. I slammed against the door anyway, fists bruising against the wood. "Let me in! Please, someone let me in!" The silence answered again. From behind came the crunch of gravel, deliberate and slow. The masked figure emerged at the edge of the street, posture tilted, head cocked like a predator examining the final movements of its prey. My hand shook as I fumbled in my bag for my phone, nearly dropping it twice before my thumb found the right contact. When the ringing broke through, it felt like salvation. My mother's voice arrived, groggy but alert. "Hello? Honey, are you okay?" The words spilled out of me between sobs, incoherent but desperate. "Mom, please come get me, there's a man, he's chasing me, please." Her voice sharpened, steady, commanding in a way I had never heard before. "Stay exactly where you are. We're on our way. Do not move. Stay in the light." So I did. I stood there, pressed against the locked door, staring at him. His breathing rasped through the mask, loud enough to cut through the night. His fingers twitched, restless, as though he couldn't decide whether to move forward or wait. The stillness was worse than any sudden attack. It felt like time itself was bending. Then, just as headlights appeared down the street, he turned. Without hurry, without fear, he walked back to the truck, climbed in, and drove away into the blackness. When my parents arrived moments later, their arms caught me before my knees could give way. My father's fury sent him scanning the shadows, but the man was gone. Gone, yet not gone. Because the mask remains in my memory, grinning in every reflection, waiting in every silence. Summer nights do not feel warm anymore. They feel like traps. And whenever a car slows behind me, my heart remembers the weight of that grin pressing into the dark. The first time I learned how fragile a body can be was on a night when nothing extraordinary was supposed to happen. 19 years old, a second-year student, broke, and reckless enough to think my beat-up Honda could handle another week without repairs. When the engine finally gave out, it was after midnight, on a road that looked more like the forgotten skeleton of the city than part of it. Street lamps stood crooked, buzzing faintly, their yellow glow smeared through fog. Warehouses flanked both sides, brick walls tagged with spray-painted words I couldn't decipher. Their windows gaped like shattered teeth. Every step I took echoed with a hollowness that made me feel like the last person alive. I remember pressing my hands deeper into my hoodie pocket, pretending the cold didn't bother me. 1 mile to the gas station. I told myself I could make it. People have walked deserts. I could walk a mile. Still, the silence had weight. Nietzsche once wrote, "If you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you." That road felt like an abyss, and I was the fool staring into it. Halfway there, I heard it, the low rumble of an engine, too smooth to ignore. My shoulders stiffened. I didn't turn around right away, afraid my glance might invite whatever was behind me closer. But the light gave it away, headlights stretching my shadow across the cracked asphalt. The car slowed as it neared, its speakers thumping bass that rattled my chest like a second heartbeat. The passenger window slid down with a mechanical groan. A man leaned out, his face a blur in the dim light. His voice had the lazy drawl of someone who drowned his conscience in cheap beer. "Yo, lost kid? Need a ride?" I shook my head quick, trying to keep my steps steady. No running. Running makes predators chase. Their laughter followed me, loud, mocking, spilling into the night air. The driver revved the engine, pulled forward, then slowed again until the bumper crawled beside me. Another voice shouted, sharper this time, soaked in menace. "Come on, don't be rude!" The words cut, but it wasn't what they said, it was how. There's a type of cruelty that doesn't bother hiding itself. You hear it and know your prey. I gritted my teeth and stared at the ground, but I heard the glass before I saw it. A bottle, spinning through the air like some crude weapon of fate. It smashed against the side of my head with a sound I'll never forget. Not the crash of glass, that was quick, almost delicate. It was the dull thud of skull and blood that followed, the sudden blank shock of impact. The world tilted. Street lamps stretched and bled into streaks of gold. My knees buckled, and I tasted iron. The laughter roared once more, fading as their car sped away. They left me there, crumpled on the pavement like trash. I don't know how long I lay there. Minutes, hours, I couldn't tell. The blood from my scalp seeped into my hoodie, warm against the cold night. Every sound felt sharper, the rattle of a loose sign in the wind, the hiss of a distant train, my own ragged breathing. I tried to move, but my body refused. The next thing I knew, fluorescent light burned my eyes. I was in a hospital bed. My head was wrapped, stitches biting into my skin. A nurse told me a stranger had found me slumped by the curb, called an ambulance, and then disappeared before leaving a name. Like some guardian angel in street clothes. That should have been the end. Stupid kids with beer, a cracked skull, and a bill to pay. But it wasn't. Trauma is like an infection, it doesn't stay in the wound. It spreads. At first it was just nightmares. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, the sound of glass exploding in my ears. In the dreams, the bottle always hit harder, and I never woke up. Then came the panic attacks. Walking home from class one evening, a car slowed beside me to ask for directions. My vision tunneled. I couldn't breathe. I bolted into a stranger's yard and collapsed behind their hedge, heart clawing at my ribs. The driver shouted something after me, probably confused, maybe even trying to help, but all I heard was that laughter, replayed like a broken record. My friends told me to shake it off, to man up. Easy words from people whose heads hadn't split open on the pavement. I started lying, saying I had assignments, skipping gatherings, avoiding night walks. The world narrowed to safe routes and locked doors. What unsettled me most wasn't the injury, but the randomness. That bottle could have killed me, and not because of some cosmic justice, not because I did something wrong, but because 4 drunk strangers decided I existed at the wrong place, the wrong time. Camus said, "The absurd is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world." That silence screamed at me every night. Why me? Why then? Silence. Therapists tried to untangle it. They called it PTSD, explained the wiring of fear in the brain, gave me breathing exercises, pills, routines. Some of it helped, most of it didn't. Because fear isn't just chemical. It's memory. It's that cold reminder that safety is paper thin. I started noticing bottles everywhere. A green shard in a gutter could send my pulse racing. At parties, the clink of beer bottles against tables made me flinch. The sound followed me into movie theaters, restaurants, even quiet libraries. Once, a classmate dropped a soda bottle on the floor. As it shattered, I ducked so violently I banged my head on the desk. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, but inside, I felt that old crack blooming again. I never saw their faces. The police asked, but all I could say was, "4 guys, a car, music too loud." No details. No license plate. Nothing to hold on to. And maybe that's worse than knowing. Because now, every passing car at night could be them. Every laugh spilling out of a rolled-down window feels like a warning. Some people survive accidents with scars they can show. Mine hides under hair, under skin, under silence. But it's there. Years later, I still avoid industrial roads. I still cross the street when headlights stretch my shadow too long. And when a stranger's laughter cuts through the night, something in me fractures all over again. It was supposed to be a quiet drive, one of those nights where the world feels paused, and all you hear is the steady hum of your own car engine. 3 in the morning, the road winding through the mountains like a coiled serpent, cliffs yawning open on one side, and pine forests stretching into blackness on the other. My girlfriend lived in the valley, and the only way home was this lonely road. There was comfort in the routine of it. My headlights carved pale tunnels through the night. The air outside was cold enough to make the windshield fog, and the sky above was so starless it looked like it had swallowed its own light. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, how this was the kind of silence people in cities pay to find. But peace is fragile. It always breaks faster than it's built. The first crack came from the mirror. 2 headlights appeared behind me, faint at first, just another traveler on the road. But the distance between us shrank quickly, unnervingly quickly. I thought nothing of it. Maybe they were just in a rush, but the lights clung to me, growing brighter, filling the rear view until my cabin glowed in artificial day. I eased right, giving room, waiting for the pass. That's what people do on roads like this, let each other go. But the Jeep didn't pass. It stuck to my bumper, so close I could almost feel the heat of its engine. The high beam seared my eyes in the mirror. My pulse rose. "All right," I muttered under my breath. "Just go around me." But it didn't. The first hit wasn't strong. A jolt, more like a nudge, the kind of bump you might give a shopping cart when you're not paying attention. But on a mountain road with no guardrails, even a nudge feels like a shove from death itself. My hands tightened on the wheel. The second hit came harder. Metal crunched, my chest slammed against the seatbelt, and my car wobbled dangerously toward the cliff's edge. For a second, I saw nothing outside my side window but blackness, the kind of black that means there's nothing to catch you if you fall. My mind raced. Who the hell was behind me? Why weren't they passing? Was it a drunk? A maniac? Someone who wanted me gone? There's a line from Hemingway I remembered in that moment. The world breaks everyone, and afterward, some are strong at the broken places. But as the Jeep rammed me a third time, ribs aching under the seatbelt's bite, I didn't feel strong. I felt like glass, waiting to shatter. I floored the gas. My old Honda groaned in protest, engine screaming, but it found speed. The road twisted left, then right, the tires squealing against asphalt. Behind me, the Jeep's headlights stayed glued, predator eyes fixed on prey. I tried brake checking, hoping he'd lose control, but the Jeep swerved with predatory grace, waiting for me to make a mistake. Every curve felt like the last one I'd survive. At one point, I thought I saw the driver, just a silhouette behind the glare. No face, just the outline of a man gripping the wheel, steady, unshaken, like this wasn't rage at all. It was purpose. He rammed me again, harder than before. My ribs screamed. My vision blurred. The wheel jerked toward the abyss, and I swore I could feel gravity itself reaching for me. I don't know how I stayed on the road. I think adrenaline drove for me. The car wobbled, skidded, but found traction at the last second. I spat curses into the empty cabin, heart clawing at my ribs like it wanted out. Then silence. The Jeep didn't ram again. Instead, it slowed, hanging back, its beams still washing over me. For a stretch of road, it followed with eerie patience. Then, without warning, it swerved off into the trees, vanishing between pines as if it had never been there. I drove the rest of the way in a daze, my car limping, metal groaning from the damage. I could smell gasoline and burned rubber. Every turn of the wheel sent lightning bolts of pain through my chest. At the hospital, X-rays showed broken ribs and a punctured lung. The doctors called me lucky. The cops wrote a report, but what could I give them? A Jeep on a mountain road, no plate number, No description, no proof. Just scars and fear. Weeks later, I tried driving again. The road looked the same, quiet, starless, innocent. But the rearview mirror had changed. It became an enemy, a portal of paranoia. Every light behind me was too close, every driver too slow to pass. It's been years now. And still, when the road is dark and empty, I feel it, the phantom weight of a bumper against mine, the breath of the abyss outside the window. I tell myself it was random, some drunk or lunatic. But in the deepest part of me, I know it wasn't chance. There was something deliberate in those hits, something patient in that silhouette. And sometimes, when I catch headlights swelling in the mirror, I can't tell if it's memory or warning. Because predators don't always live in forests. Sometimes they hunt on roads. Work ran late that night. The office emptied hours before, and by the time I shut down my computer, the hallways were hollow, lined with fluorescent lights that hummed like they were tired of their own existence. I slipped my bag over my shoulder, stepped into the elevator, and pressed the button for the garage. The doors closed with a groan, sealing me into a steel box that rattled its way downward. The underground lot was exactly how I expected, dim, concrete echoing with each movement, the smell of oil clinging to the air. My footsteps tapped against the floor, sharp in the silence, as I crossed toward the far corner where my car waited. At first, I thought I was alone. Most people had gone home hours earlier, and the handful of cars left sat in neat, isolated rows. Then I saw him. A man in grimy coveralls, crouched by the back of a car near mine, a dark cap pulled low on his head. His hands moved as though he was fixing something, but I noticed quickly that his vehicle wasn't open. No hood, no trunk, no tools. Just motions, repetitive and meaningless. The sound of my steps made him freeze for the briefest second before resuming the performance. I slowed. The air felt heavier, like the concrete itself was pressing closer. His car, if it was his, wasn't parked properly. No plates. No sticker. Just an empty, dust-smeared shell. I tried to keep my pace steady, though I felt his attention swivel toward me. My car sat 3 spaces down from where he lingered. Between us stretched 20 steps. That meant, if anything happened, every exit in that garage was behind him. There's a rule I've carried since childhood: don't let fear make decisions for you. Fear exaggerates, inflates shadows, invents monsters. But sometimes fear isn't lying, sometimes it's pointing. My hand dipped into my bag, brushing over my keys until I hooked one between my fingers, sharp edge out. My father once told me it wasn't much of a weapon, but at least it gave the hand purpose. I drew closer. The man shifted, straightening slowly, wiping his hands against the dirty fabric of his coveralls. His mask wasn't rubber or cloth, but it may as well have been. His face was too still, too blank, as though he'd forgotten how to arrange features in a human way. When he spoke, his voice came low and too casual. "Long night?" The words echoed against the concrete, filling the garage with a resonance that seemed to multiply them. "Yeah," I muttered, not meeting his eyes, forcing a small smile that I didn't feel. Polite but closed. He leaned against the car, crossing his arms. "Not many people down here this time of night." The keys bit into my palm. Every instinct screamed to get in my car, lock the doors, and leave. But my body moved slower, weighed down by the heavy truth that he was too close. That if he wanted to block me, all he had to do was take one step forward. I unlocked my car with a shaky press of the button. The beep echoed loud, too loud, like a signal. His head tilted toward the sound, eyes narrowing slightly. For a heartbeat, either of us moved. My pulse hammered, filling my ears so completely I almost didn't hear the scuff of his boot against the concrete as he shifted closer. "Nice car," he said, voice dragging the words like he wanted to stretch them thin. My throat tightened. "Thanks," I managed, fumbling for calm, forcing my hands not to tremble as I reached for the door. That was when he stepped away from his vehicle entirely. No hesitation. No pretense. Just a slow, deliberate move that erased the illusion he had tried to maintain. He wasn't fixing anything. He wasn't even parked. He had been waiting. The distance between us shrank in seconds. I yanked the handle, threw myself into the driver's seat, and slammed the door shut. My fingers smashed the lock button. The sound of the click felt like salvation. He stopped inches from the window. For the first time, I saw his face clearly. Unshaven, sweat shining along his temple, lips stretched into a grin that had no joy in it. His hand lifted, tapping the glass once with a dirty fingernail. The sound was soft, almost polite, but it vibrated through me like a gunshot. I jammed the keys into the ignition, engine sputtering alive. My hands trembled as I shifted into reverse, eyes locked on him. He didn't move. He only stood there, smile fixed, tapping the window again. The tires screeched as I shot backward, swung the wheel, and tore toward the exit ramp. My breath came in ragged gasps, every muscle taut with the certainty he would follow. But no headlights filled my mirror. No footsteps echoed behind. Only when I burst into the night air, streetlights spilling over me like water, did I let myself cry. My chest heaved, every sob edged with relief and rage at my own helplessness. The next morning I reported it. Security shrugged. No cameras on that side of the garage, no guards patrolling past 9. The police nodded politely, wrote notes, but without a crime, without a name, there was nothing they could do. They told me to be careful. As if I hadn't already learned. Now whenever I park, no matter the lot, no matter the time, I check. I check the spaces, the shadows, the quiet corners where silence waits. And when I see a man standing too still, or a car parked too far from reason, my chest tightens with memory. I think about his grin pressed against the glass. About the sound of his fingernail tapping like he was already claiming me. And I know, without doubt, that night wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't bad luck. It was intention. Because some people don't wait for opportunity. They create it.